the idea, or tinkering the idea of state police. Yesterday, in a meeting with state governors, it was said that there is a possibility that the state police could become a reality. But again, we do know that 1 minute the federal government says one thing, the next minute it comes back to say something else. Especially regarding, for instance, on issue of food scarcity and the likes, we also have something to talk about there, because inflation has jumped up to 29.90%. Apparently just 30%. Instead of just saying 30%, we're saying 29.90%. It's, those of you who do statistics and maths, you would know that 9.0 is as good as 30. So that's where we are. Food prices have gone up, and the federal government has ruled out the idea of importation. Recall that on February 8, when the Minister for Information spoke to Nigerians about the situation, he said, they're considering, opening up the food banks, or, food silos, whatever it is, to distribute food to Nigerians, and then also considering importation. But apparently yesterday he came out to say, no, we're not going to do that. The federal government is not going to do any of that. Let's get to hear him on the issue of state police as we come back to analyze this, the issue. It's been an age-long conversation. Some people for, some others against state police. But yesterday at that meeting, we don't know what to call it. Some people have said, well, maybe the president should have called for a Council of State meeting. Maybe eventually he would have to call for that. But it was an emergency meeting yesterday between the federal government and state governors. At that meeting, the Minister of Information says there were conversations around state police. Now, what's going to happen? Also in the State Assembly, or rather in the House of Assembly, the House of Reps, rather, in the House of Representatives, the bill to amend the Constitution to allow for state police has, cross second reading, would see if at some point we're going to be able to amend the Constitution to allow for state police, even though the agitations or the arguments for and against continues. Stay here. Let's listen to the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, as he speaks on the issue of state police.
And the state governors have also...
Okay, seems like we have a problem here. I don't know who did this and why they would do this. Disconnect the platform. But okay, let's get to it now. Get to it. Listen.
And the state governors.
Okay, this is continued. Interesting times, interesting days. Some days technology just wants to mess up. It's called to mess up. Give us a moment.
Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
And the state governors have also discussed the possibility of improving the numeric strength of forest rangers, to train them so that they can keep our forest and our borders very safe. Now, there is also a discussion around the issue of state police. The federal government and the state governments are mulling the possibility of setting up state police. Of course, this is still going to be further discussed. A lot of work has to be done in that direction.
And that's the Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, speaking on that issue. What other work needs to be done? There's more consultation that needs to go into this. As a nation, we need to be able to, get to that point. But beyond just having state police, isn't it time we began to look closely into this issue of restructuring again? Bring up the issue. There's been conversations about this in the past conferences, even the National Confab of 2014 had that conversation there, the issue of restructuring. I recall that in the Buhari administration, promises were made. The APC made promises. There was a committee set up headed by the former governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai. They had this conversation about restructuring, and they came up with some points and resolutions and recommendations to see that and to see that restructuring was done, and they promised that restructuring was going to be looked into. But in the last 8 years, none of such was being done. There's no such restructuring. Now, in the APC manifesto, the renewed hope agenda or renewed hope manifesto, there was the issue of state police mentioned there. It was discussed. It was in the manifesto. The president had promised that state police was going to be looked into and maybe even created. The argument against state police has been that the governors would take undue advantage of the police. If the police are directly under their control, they're going to use that to muscle their political opponents and just do whatever it is that they want. And this is what I ask. Under the current arrangement with the federal police, have the governors shied away from using the police against their political opponents? Have they shied away from using even the judiciary against their political opponents and even those who oppose them in any other way? It is in this country that we saw a governor send the police to arrest and detain journalists. We've seen governors arrest and detain journalists and in fact send them to prison for doing their job, for writing something that didn't sit well with them. In fact, not even just not publishing them on national dailies, but writing on their own Facebook pages. We've seen it. We've seen governors oppress people because the people, rose up against them in protest of their ideas or policies. So what are we saying? Are we not already dealing with, the oppression using the police? Well, how much worse can it get if we have state police and we're able to know that you are responsible, this man or this person who is governor, if anything is failing in this state as regards security, he is the one, as against just blaming the federal government for all of the insecurity across the country? Because as it is, the governors don't have a responsibility, if you ask me. If the governors do not control the natural resources in their states or the mineral resources in their states, they do not control the police, then why do we have governors? Really, why do we have governors? Is it for them to just go to Abuja every month and collect allocations? Because the reason they're not paying attention to internally generated revenue and generating, creating ideas to generate revenue for their states and develop their states is because of this idea of go to Abuja at the end of the month, collect money, come back, pay salaries, and then use the rest of it for yourself. Go to Abuja, collect security votes. After all, you're not, the same people would say we're not chief security officers in our state by the constitution. We're just chief security officers by mouth. After all, we do not control the commissioners of police in our states and blah blah blah. When it comes to issues of security, that's what they say. But when it comes to collecting security votes, they don't shy away from it. They don't say, it's not my responsibility to collect security votes. After all, I am just security officer, chief security officer by tag and by name. I do not control the police. They don't say that. They go ahead and collect the security votes. When it's time for elections and they need the police to work for them in certain areas, quote unquote, work for them, they don't shy away from that. The police commissioners in their states somewhat work for them. If the police commissioner is not bowing to their pressure, they find a way to get him out before elections and bring in somebody else who is going to do their bidding. So what are we saying? Really, when we argue against state police, what are we really saying? What are we really arguing against? Is it just to continue to allow them to hide under the umbrella of, we do not control the police, we do not control the armed forces, we have no control over security in our states because the constitution does not empower us to? That's the question you should ask yourself. We should be asking ourselves this question. And the issue of funding has also been raised. A lot of those who oppose the idea of state police say, where are the state governors going to get the monies to pay the police? Where are they going to get the funds to get the police? This is where the conversation around proper devolution of power comes in. Proper restructuring comes in. because there are ways to generate revenue in every state. There are resources that can help the states generate revenue that we're not looking at. The governor's just lazy about. Just sit down in the office. Oh, bring this money, bring that money. Oh, share this one, take that. Oh, we can't get let's go and borrow. That's all. Let's take a loan from here. Let's take a loan. Look, some of the debts by subnationals is even more than the state, the debts that the federal government is owing. State governments are borrowing more money. If you put their loans together, it's bigger than what the federal government has collected. So why are we shying away from restructuring the country? Why are we shying away from actually making people who will vote into office work for us or do the job that they're expected to do? Why do we allow them shy away and hide under the umbrella of the Constitution does not give us the power to? Isn't it time we begin to, if we really look, all of the amendments that have been done in the last 20 years of the constitutional amendments are a waste if we do not begin to look at devolution of powers, proper true federalism, where the subnationals generate revenue and contributes to the center, as against this idea of the center generates and distributes to 36. I mean, think about it. We say this all the time. If one man cooks for the community would consume it and finish, right? Like, and still ask for more. But if the community cooks for one man, it's more difficult. It would be difficult for him to ever finish it. That's the simple analogy to explain this. What is currently happening is that the federal government generates revenue for everybody, these 36 states of the federation and the 774 local governments to share. Federal government doing that, as against an idea of the 36 states and their 774 local governments generating revenue and sending to the center, sending a portion of it to the center. That's going to make more sense than have a situation where there's lithium in Kogi, there's this one in that state, there's that one in that state, and all of them are wasting. People are coming into the country to steal them. There's crude oil in the south that's being stolen and frittered away on a daily basis because the state governors there are finding ways to do business with the security agents that have been fingered in oil theft, international oil companies and even other countries who are coming in to steal what we have. There's a big racket, there's a big syndicate and some level of collusion at all levels from top to bottom. This is why there's wastage. If the governor of the state is responsible for the minerals and everything in his state, then we would ask him what he's doing with those resources. How much the state is generating from those resources that the people own, and he's holding in trust, for the people. We would ask these questions. But in a situation where the federal government just sits there, where the federal government, we own the resources in the land, every resource in the land. I mean, think about it. It brings us to even talk about the issue of land ownership and all in this country. I own a piece of land, I buy a piece of land, the land belongs to me. The federal government says, or the state government owns the land in trust of the people, right? That's what the Constitution says. The state government owns the land in the trust of the people, right? But the moment a mineral resource or anything that's of value is found on that piece of land, it ceases to belong to the state or the person who owns it, quote unquote, the person who bought it. So if, for instance, I buy a land now and then I discover that there's gold on my piece of land, I automatically cease to own that land. The state government, first of all, takes it over, and then the federal government takes it over from the state because there is a mineral resource underneath. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. If I own a piece of land and the mineral resource is found in it, I should be able to explore that, sell, make profit, pay taxes to the state government, and in turn the state government pays taxes to the federal government. I find a way to do business around that and making money, which is why the taxation in other climes is a big business, is a big thing for government. Government generates revenue from it. I'm just going to set that aside. Move on to the next subject. Inflation has gone up to 29 official figures. This is not me now. The NBS. Official figures by the NPS, that's the NBS rather, National Bureau of Statistics, says Consumer Price Index CPI, which measures the rate of changes in prices of goods and commodities, rose to 29.90% in January compared to 28.92% in the preceding month. Year-on-year headline inflation was 8.08% higher compared to 21.82% in January of 2023. The CPI report for the month under review indicated that food inflation increased by 11.10% year on year to 35. Listen to this. Food inflation rate increased by 11.10% year on year compared to 35.41% compared to 24.32% in January 2024. Now, food inflation is at 35.41%. The rise in food index was attributed to increasing prices of bread and cereals, potato, yam and tubers, oil and fish, oil and fat, fish, meat, fruit, coffee, tea, and cocoa. That's on the one hand. For food insecurity, the federal government says has mandated the police, the DSS, NSCDC, all the security agencies to go on after those hoarding food. Recall that they said they're going to release about 102,000 metric tons of food, 60,000 metric tons from the Federal Strategic Reserves, and then 42,000 metric tons from the farmers contributing that. They're going to get that from farmers and distribute to Nigerians. Now, is that a way to tackle the inflation? They're saying they're going against those hoarding food. Now, the question is, how do you determine those who are hoarding food as against those who are buying food and warehousing and storing up in their warehouses? Because food storage is a business. Some of you actually are doing this food storage business in a small scale. Some of you buy 5-10 bags of maize and maybe rice and beans when it's harvest time, right? And you store that up for a period when harvest is over and food is becoming scarce in the market. You bring them out to sell. You make a profit on it, right? Isn't that what business is? The business is. Now, there are people who buy in large quantities during the harvest, store them up and say, okay, when it's dry season where we're not farming so much, they're going to bring them out and sell. They're going to be selling, all year round. That's the way to make food available year round, right? And also I'm not ruling out the place of those who are buying to hoard and make sure that the prices go up and then increase the prices when it's a little scarce. We know that there's that practice, but then there's also need to have food available all year round. For speaking of what the federal government is doing, they're saying they're going to support irrigation farming, dry season farming. Some states have keyed into it, and we hope that this dry season farming is a reality. Tackle fiscal insecurity. There would be more people going to their farms, accessing their farms, and harvesting food and making food available. That's the easiest way. Look, let's tackle these things from the roots. Yesterday, Martha said we have a way of just doing things and tackling issues from the periphery, from the top of it, rather than going to the root of it. What is the cause of food insecurity in the country? The major cause is the insecurity. People have found it difficult to go to their farms to to farm. And even when they farm, they can't really harvest. When they harvest, when they succeed at harvesting, they pay taxes in food to terrorists and kidnappers and bandits and all of that. In food items, some of them have to pledge a portion of their farmlands to the terrorists and bandits so that they can access the farms. If we tackle insecurity, we've tackled one half of it. One half of this whole food insecurity that we're dealing with would be gone. So more people would have, food available in the markets, and food will flood the markets. It's going to be cheaper. The organized private sector said they do not support the federal government on importation of food, which the federal government has ruled out now as against what they had said earlier when, on the 8th of February, when they came out to say they were considering importation of food by the emergency committee on food that was set up by the president. Now, that's been ruled out. The organized private sector says they don't support it. The farmers have endorsed the idea of, look, let's not import food. But if we're not importing food, would our farmers be able to actually farm and produce food that would be sufficient for the entire country? These are the questions that need to be asked. What have we done to make sure that farmers are able to farm and produce food? I'm going to have you join the conversation in a bit. 090-7353-0044 and 090-8766-8888 are the numbers to call. But before then, let's listen to the Minister of Information on the issue of food insecurity.
The National Security Advisor, the Director General of the State Services, the Inspector General of Police have been directed to coordinate with the state governors to look at the issue of those holding commodities. Number two, a decision has also been taken that in the interest of our country, there will be no need for food importation at this point. Nigeria has the potential to feed itself and even be a next exporter of food items to other countries.
Well, the federal government believes that Nigeria can be, self-sufficient when it comes to food and agricultural produce, and also be a net exporter of food. That's where we leave the conversation. Joining now, share your thoughts with us on 090-7353-0044 and 090-8766-8888. I would say let's be careful so that we do not run people out of business in the name of tackling food hoarding. Okay, I'll bring in this caller quickly. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Abdullahi Mekano.
Thank you very much, sir. You are doing a great job.
Appreciate you.
So, frankly speaking, the government is not sincere about this food insecurity in the country. My reasons are as follows. The government should allow food to be available in the country before they go after those people holding food in their own warehouse and stores. Those are businessmen. They bought it, they kept it, they sell it in a small quantity, and they also larger quantity. So there is no point in you as a government to regularize everything, but while you are using forces to go after those people, government has the money, the power, and everything to go and make everything available. When government make it available, if you hold your food in your warehouse, you also bring it out because government will crush the price down because everything is available. But at the same time, government has no policies about the issue. And the Kenyan forces trying to make it that people will get it cheaper, and that is not their own property. Property belongs to individuals. I think government has to take it into consideration. The secondly, the issue of state police, I don't think if it is going to be okay for Nigeria at the moment. In the developing world, state police are very crucial, and it can be very, very important to the nation. But in a country, Nigeria, where we are so biased, we are so, selfish, I think the state governors will use the state police against political opponents, and they will also use them for their own personal interest. because Nigeria is a country that takes things upside down. The way we are seeing it is not the way governments are going to use it. Somebody who paid to pay 30,000 naira as a minimum wage, now trying to say he is ready to create a state police. Where is they get the money? Who is going to give them the money? Is the federal government going to give the state government the money to run a state police? If they are the ones going to get the money, how? They have to pay salaries on time, some of them. Even 30,000 naira minimum wage, some of them very hard for them to pay. And now they are calling for police, no state police. So when you look at it, you know there is hidden agenda of those governments.
But the question is, Abdullahi Mekano, currently, which of these things that you mentioned, opposition, Muslim opposition or intimidating opposition and all, and using the police for their personal, which of them is not currently going on with the federal police system?
So the issue is not like that now. In Nigeria, look at the issue of subsidy. Now, before everybody was saying what government remove for subsidy is going to be, good to Nigerians because they will use the money for subsidy to make Nigeria better, to make life better in Nigeria. But look at it now. We are getting more hardship in Nigeria, and nobody can tell you where subsidy money is going through. So that's the problem in Nigeria. Nigeria is a country that the systems are not working. We all know that the systems are not working. They take things upside down. The way you are seeing it, you read it on a paper, on a news, on television, and whatever, it's quite different from the way things are going on the ground. You can see something that is white in color, but when you come to reality, you will find out it is not white, it is a grid. Green, all right, in Nigeria. So things are not going well. The country is just a country that is put things upside down. And once you look at it from the window, you will think it is right. But when you come into the room, you will find out that it is not right. So they would never allow the system to work. And we don't have any functioning system to monitor the state police in Nigeria. We have to be very, very careful. Because even the federal police now tend to discharge their duties accordingly.
Okay.
We can now go ahead and bring a state police. There may be a clash between the federal and the state police in Nigeria.
Right, Abdullahi
and the politicians are doing it for their own interest. They have no political will. They are not ready for it. I'm telling you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for calling. Hello, good morning.
Yes, hello, my place. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Yes, this is Omotayo, reaching you from Galadima.
Hi, Mr. Matayo. Good to have you. Welcome.
All right, thank you so much. So quickly, on this topic of what's it called, restructuring of state police. Look, Nigerians better calm down, follow a slow pace, and think right about this thing, because that was the same way Nigerians were clamoring about the removal of fuel subsidy earlier, when this was earlier being discussed. Today, it is the biggest problem we are facing now. At least we know very well that it is the root of the insecurity that we are going through. A lot of people are hungry and they don't have any other means to survive. Therefore, they verge into insecurity and begin to kidnap and all of that. So right now, I'm urging Nigerians to sit back, rethink this thing through, because it may just, at the end of the day, not go as we planned, as we expected. Do you understand? Now, on this issue of food and reserve and this one and that one, look, we are having problems with character. With in fact, we don't have a system that punish people when they go wrong. Look, our state governors received, apart from the the security vote, money for security vote, they received money in billions as announced by the federal government the last time. What have they done with this money? Look, the state governments are part of the reasons why the people are suffering around the states and even within the federal. Yes, because they receive allocations and then we don't see what these allocations do. We need to begin to hold our leaders, we need to hold them accountable for whatever goes. Look, my prince,
yes, sir.
The truth, I would tell you the truth right now. It is because of indiscipline in our system. That is why if you like, make police national or federal, and state or federal, it will not work. The same thing will happen, because as I speak to you, the police are being used by the governors to perpetrate certain things that we cannot mention on air. You understand? Because of security reasons. Yes, they use them, and even dignitaries, not even governors, not to talk of when you now make it a state-controlled something. Look, we need to think this thing right.
Okay.
Our problem is character.
Okay. Thank you
If we can
very much.
work on the aspect of character, then we will have all these things go well. Let there be punishment. Look, imagine you put somebody into office. He's not performing like the police commissioner of a state. Is under his watch. There is killing and there is maiming and there is armed robbery and all of that. None of them get to face punishment. Look, in other clans where policing work, when you are assigned to office and your things don't go right under your watch, you are not only going to be punished, you are going to be demoted and disgraced nationally. That's how they do things. That's how people get to know that, okay, if I enter this office or I'm assigned to do this job, if I don't do it, I'm going to be demoted and I'm going to be disgraced. If we don't do that, I'm telling you, all these things we are discussing, all the top solution, like you said, that we are profiling, it will not work.
All right.
We'll just keep going about the things that cool.
Thank you,
so
Mr.
much.
Masaya. Appreciate you calling in and, well, making a case for social justice as the way out. If you commit a crime, the next man commits a crime, let's all be punished for it. Let's know that this is the punishment. It would not change because you're my brother or you're my sister or you practice the same religion as I do, or whatever it is. If you commit the crime, you will do the time. That's what it should be, right? I appreciate that one. But something that both yourself and Abdullahi may kind of said that tickled my mind is the fact that, look, Nigeria is not like every other place, right? The things that you would expect to work in that would work perfectly or work well in other climes, when it comes here, it just dies. It just suffers. It just suffers a big setback. And you wonder why a country like Nigeria, with all of the blessed people that we have, all of the natural resources and the blessings that that God has given us as a people, just wouldn't allow things to thrive and flourish. Great ideas that would be implemented in other countries and you'd see things work. When they're brought here,
they just die a natural death. Hello, good morning.
Hello, my friends.
Good morning, Okwi. Welcome.
Great power listeners. My own take is on President Ted. Say that Mr. President is doing well, his policy is doing well, he's doing well. He's going to benefit Nigeria on good. When things are happening, where you are not, mathematics, where Nigerians are suffering, go out to street and see how people are suffering. And now singing praises to Mr. President, you're doing well. Mr. President, you are doing well. Your policy is going to benefit Nigeria. Who are the policies benefiting? Because they are feeding by government money, paying by to Nigeria, they are paying their taxes. If they know that Mr. President is doing well, you should go sell all their properties, all their houses, even in the village. Then sell them off. Sell them, then I will help them to share the money to the street. They say the whole house is their house. Sell their plazas, sell their shops, anything concerned landed properties, even their cars they are using. They should sell all of them. Now I will help them to come out to the street and share the money to the masses. Then after sharing it to all their property finish, then I will give them 1,000 naira each to go and hawk pure water. Are you hearing me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes. I'll give them 1,000 naira to hawk pure water on the street. Yes. Let them take them pay school fees, pay house rent and other things. That should stop deceiving Nigerians. Nigerians are suffering. Have a nice celebration.
Thank you very much.
Nigerians are suffering. Well, Nigeria's police, the history of Nigerian police goes way back into the 19th century, right? Was formed first of all in 1879. All right, or rather 1861. In 1861, Nigeria Police began with a 30-member consular guard formed in Lagos, in the Lagos colony at the time, and then by 1879, a 1,200-member armed paramilitary police constabulary was formed. In 1896, the Lagos Police was established. A similar force, the Niger Coast Constabulary, was formed and Calabar in 1894 under the newly proclaimed Niger Coast Protectorate. Now, tracing this back all the way, what has changed about policing in the country? It seems like the idea of policing has always just been to oppress, because the police at the time when it was formed was used to ensure that, you know, Nigerians remain loyal to their masters. At the time, their colonizers, right? They were used as an instrument to coerce people into submission and all of that stuff. Has it changed today? Is the mindset of the police changed? This is why people are afraid that if state police is allowed or is created, we would have a problem of governors using them to intimidate and coerce people into submission. So the police needs a reorientation. We need to have police become more civil so that people can trust them and know that, look, the policeman is not there to be used as an instrument of intimidation. He's there to serve the people. Okay? If we reorient the police and reorient the people to know that the role of the police is not to intimidate or harass, rather to protect lives and property and serve the people, then we wouldn't be afraid. Our problem is that what the colonial masters handed over to us is what we have continued with. Countries have gone ahead today, countries that are less than 60 years old have gone ahead today to build industries and some of them even producing cars of their own. That's how much technology has grown in those countries. That's how much, industrialization has grown in those countries. But in Nigeria, we have continued in the way of our colonial masters. Oh, dig up natural resources, send them to Europe and America. That's all we've been doing. The same way the colonial masters handed over the country to us, to whoever our leaders are now, from then, it's the same way we have continued. Dig up natural resources, dig up mineral resources, no processing, nothing, no value addition, just send them over to those who would add value to them, and then they will send them back to you and you buy them at higher rates. Is there wisdom in that? More callers are here. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, thank you very much.
Good morning, Clement Zion Prince. I'm glad to have you.
Thank you. You spoke very, very well, and you raised so many pertinent issues across the board. One of them that interests me to comment on is the need for this devolution of powers, even if it includes constitutional amendment to ensure that state policing is actually given its reach. You spoke of how the governors are sitting in limbo, pretending that because they are not in control, that is why so many things are going wrong in their states. It is the federal government that will come and checkmate insecurity. It is the federal government that will come and protect our mineral resources and deposits in their states. But you also said that there's a lot of stealing that is going on of these resources, and that there's collusion going on. I want to tell you that collusion is not being done even without the participation of some state governors who have good relationship with naval commanders and security chiefs in the various states. They are all guilty. What's happening in Nigeria? The problem of Nigeria is hypocrisy and corruption, serious corruption. If governors can connive with the international organizations and oil firms and their security chiefs to steal our mineral resources in the various states, when it is still under the ambit of the control of the federal government, how much money is under their control. That's what is happening with even state police, even with police now. You have highlighted how some of these governors use this police against their political opponents and journalists. That is even as to when it is under the control of the federal government. So the problem of Nigeria is a conundrum. You look at Section 22 of the Land Use Act, for instance, which confers all lands on state governors. All lands in the state belong to the federal government. I mean, to the state government. What are they doing with it? They're not using it to enhance productivity and the land ownership of their people. They are confiscating the land to themselves. So we come in with Ponzi projects and carve out land masses. After which nothing will be done on those lands. They will go back and share these lands for themselves. I have a very beautiful land in my town, in Central Place. What the government started to do is to do a very big market project in that place, in that state. I don't just want to talk.
Was there a form of compensation to you and your family?
That is where I'm coming to. What Section 22 of that Land Use Act talks of is adequate compensation for the people when the land is actually needed for a very project that will benefit the people. Yes, of course. Now, what these people do without compensation, they will just come take over because they know the people cannot raise voice. I decided to raise voice. I went to the governor. He said I should go to my monarch that he has given money for compensation. What did they do? They just brought out maybe 100,000, 50,000, and the people have to scramble for it. Many of the people who own that land didn't get anything. I wanted monarch. Monarch said I should go back to the governor. I want governor ask him to do what is doing. Do you know what happened? They just built some portion. Then the remaining part, the acronyms and the people they will confer the project on will start building their own personal stores around the land. I got annoyed. Those are some of the grievances I have with my former governor. So when there's much to say. They are all in fact they are all on doing Nigeria and Nigerians. The idea of state policing is quite all right. Very, very. I think the new chairman of the Police Service Commission is doing a lot to ensure the number of people they have recruited, which have not been concluded now, is projected for state policing. But by the time they go through all these records of lawmaking, this and that, I hope they are not going to kill the project, and all the people they have recruited will still lie in limbo because some of them.
Yes, go ahead.
I can hear you.
I was going to ask. Let me ask this. So, as a police officer and a lawyer, what is your opinion on this state police issue? Do you think that it's a step in the right direction, or should we just jettison it, considering the fears of the people? Some people have said, let's think about it critically. We may just be throwing ourselves into deeper problems if we have state police.
Yeah, state policing would have been a very, very good idea and project if only there's sincerity in implementation. Because the people who actually know the crimes and the crimes of the various regions and states are the people who, like take for instance the issue of kidnapping. I tell you, the kidnappers are not spirits. The people that are living around those areas know them. Our kidnappers not imposing the bandits not imposing levies on communities, and the communities are paying. They know these people. Even our so-called government leaders, governors, senators, they know these people. A minister said that he has made a concrete truce with bandits in his Zamfara state, and that agreement is working. If he didn't know them, how did he go into agreement? Today he's a minister, and his security is still ravaging his state and his local government area and his village. So it is a matter of sincerity. But the idea is good because the people know who they are policing. They know, in the village, if a goat misses in 2 compounds, the people in the village will point their hand to, if it is not in the hands of this guy, then it is in the hands of nobody. So such their ideas are.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And now let's look at the framework, the legal framework for the establishment of the police. Chapter 6, Part 3, and Section 214 of the 1999 Constitution establishes the Nigeria Police Force. It says there shall be a police force for Nigeria, which shall be known as the Nigeria Police Force, subject to the provisions of this section. No other police force shall be established for the federation or any part thereof. Subsection 2 now. Subject to the provisions of this constitution. Subsection 2A now says, a Nigeria police force shall be organized and administered in accordance with such provisions as may be prescribed by an act of the National Assembly. B. Members of the Nigeria police force shall have such powers and duties as may be conferred upon them by the law. C. The National Assembly may make provisions for branches of the Nigeria police force forming part of the armed forces of the Federation and or for the protection of harbors, waterways, railways, or fields, and airfields rather. Now, if this section of the Constitution, if this amendment, this section must be amended for state police to ever be a reality. Now, what does this entail? It would mean that Section 9 of the Constitution would have to come to play, which would mean that the National Assembly can only pass an act to amend the Constitution when its proposal is supported by 2/3 majority of the members of each chambers. That is 72 senators and 240 members. And then it must be approved by resolution of at least 2/3 of the state's houses of assembly before the Constitution can be amended. Now, if the National Assembly or the state assemblies are made up of more people who do not agree to state police, then the idea would be dead on arrival. So it behooves the National Assembly first and then the state assemblies to find a way to get their lawmakers, it behooves you now to find a way to get your lawmakers to agree on the idea of state police. And if you do not agree, then mostly they would also not agree, and we'll continue in the same circle. It's going to, vicious circle will continue. We'll continue to do the same thing and hope that things will change. By the way, the Minister of Power, Adebayo Adelabu, has said that subsidy on electricity cannot be sustained. They can continue to pay subsidy. So pretty soon they're going to remove subsidy on that on electricity, and maybe inflation would go up more and all of that. Pretty interesting times to be a Nigerian and to live in Nigeria. I'll leave the conversation here and hope that you have a very great weekend. Apologies if I couldn't take your calls or your let's see, I have messages here. Let's see that we can take some of these messages. Abbas says, I've done my own independent research on why we are facing food scarcity. It's not all about insecurity as has been alluded. The North is the only region faced with high rates of insecurity. But do we have such in other regions? No. Why are other regions not going to farms to produce food? No other reason than internal migration. Even in the North, most young men who go to farm have all moved to the city doing jobs that can give them immediate incomes. Look at the number of Okada men you see. These are farmers. They have all left their villages for greener pastures, so who will farm for you? I don't think that's entirely true. A lot of these people left their villages because of insecurity. And you may not know it, but in other parts of the country as well, there's insecurity and farmers. Some farmers cannot go to their farms there. And those parts of the country may not be able to produce some commodities that Nigerians, those especially staple foods, commodities that Nigerians consume. So there's a slight difference. Stuff like gari have continued to flow from the south because they produce more cassava there, even though it's more expensive now because of the cost of transportation. So there's a lot of indices that comes to play. There's a lot that comes to play as regards the food insecurity that we're dealing with. But majorly, if people can access their farms, it would be better for them. All right. Kumode says, good morning. I bet you, Mr. Ihanacho, if federal government allows state police, believe me, it would be like jumping from frying pan to fire. This is how we were agitating for removal of subsidy, and today it's removed and we found ourselves in an untold hardship. Look, Ihanacho, I don't believe in state policing. The state can have their vigilante groups and other paramilitaries. Allowing state policing is a complete ridiculing of our police across all states. I can imagine how some states like Kogi, Rivers, Kaduna, and Edo will politicize the policing. Interesting. Shall we continue to believe in fear? Will you stop drinking water because a man drowned in water? Think about it. Would we stop drinking water because people have drowned in water before? Let's think about it. And I hope that we have a very great week. Now, the issue of subsidy, if we had other issues in place, other things in place working, subsidy removal wouldn't have been a bad idea. It's just because we do not know how to implement a lot of ideas here. If the subsidy removal was properly done, the implementation was done in phases and removal was done in different stages, and buffers were put in place before the removal, you and I would not be complaining the much that we're complaining. I leave it there. Thank you to everyone who's been a part of it. Business News is up next. Martha Mata takes over on the Midday Extra Show. My name is Ihanacho Prince, His Radio Highness of Abuja. You can follow us on our socials at Eagles FM Abuja and follow yours truly as well. Let's be friends at Ihanacho Prince. The Prince is spelled with a Z instead of a CE. Bye now. Have a great weekend.